Hello and welcome back to another video by the Rose System. My name is Sarah and today we will be doing another book review. The book we will be looking at is Broken to Whole, Inner Healing for the Fragmented Soul. This book review will be a little different as this review is not only based upon my opinion. This video includes the opinions of 7 other people too. Our opinions on this book are ours and people will disagree with us. As always, we have left the details for Broken to Whole in the description below. Let's get into it. Broken to Whole was recommended to me by another system who had just started reading it. I am not sure how far they got into the book before they recommended it, but from the message it didn't seem like much. Broken to Whole is a collaborative book written by Seneca, Schurbon, Michael King, Diane Moyer, Matt Evans, Sam Brewster, and Ruby Hunter. Each chapter comes with a heading of who authored the chapter. The premise of the book is that trauma causes your soul to split, and the only way to properly heal from this is to integrate the soul back together. I spoke to my psychologist about this idea. She said she would not say that the soul has been split, but the idea that trauma can cause parts of consciousness or subconsciousness to break off is not completely out of the picture. This is different to OSDD or DID because the parts that break off are not alters. But like OSDD and DID, there is a spectrum, and what the book is talking about primarily deals with the lower end of the spectrum, rather than DID and OSDD. The authors make it clear that what they are saying can also be applied to DID systems. There is no mention of OSDD, so the authors may be unaware of this diagnosis. There are 4 sections to the book, divided into smaller chapters. The first section is about trauma and how parts are formed. The second section is about how to get into contact with the parts. Section 3 is titled Where the Rubber Hits the Road. This section is about the techniques to integrating the parts. The final section is only 2 chapters long and deals with the heavy topics of DID, SRI, and Freemasonry. I believe that the authors really intended to do good by publishing this book, but I have a lot of concerns. I picked up on so many red flags whilst reading it. The authors cannot agree upon the use of language and do not agree with each other about the methods in the book. They also at one point say to ignore the warnings of other Christians about whether the methods are safe and biblical. The Bible is referenced about 6 times throughout the whole book, and many of the references are misapplied. I am not a professional Christian, and so I checked in with other Christians in my life, including many professional Christians, about each of the interpretations of the passages to see if it was only I who was concerned. Like me, they all shared concerns over how the Bible was applied and interpreted. The first misapplication is the idea that James 1 is about people having many souls, rather than us having divided interests. Another suggestion is that each person is Trinitarian, like God. I really struggled with the theology in the book, and those I spoke to also agreed. The book also discounts the value of seeing a licensed mental health expert. At one point, the author seemed to be against seeking professional help. Mental health is an extremely complicated area, and professional counseling is very important. It is good to seek help from Christians in mental health alongside professional help. I am also not confident in the qualifications of the authors of this book to deal with mental health in a biblical way. One author spoke of the method of healing she learned, and after some research, I cannot express agreement with the training. The book also speaks about how healing can only come through navigating the spiritual world. The authors seem to encourage engaging in reality shifts to enter other dimensions. Those I have spoken to about this do not see it as biblical. This dimension, this reality, is also spiritual. We do not need and shouldn't enter other dimensions and realities. At least one author spoke about how they would navigate the spiritual world and heal fragmented parts of people who were not open to ministry. I am really not okay with this. I am okay with people praying for one another and praying that healing will occur, but no one should force healing on anyone when they are not ready to pursue it for themselves. The lack of consent given in these situations is really bad. The book seems to be an advertisement for the various ministries and businesses that the authors have. A friend of mine who is skilled at research looked into these organizations. They have absolutely no confidence in any of them. One of the ministries was reported back to be a form of gaslighting clients into believing that they have been healed. Another ministry promotes the use of flowers to unlock spiritual healing. I am not okay with this. We do not need flowers to help connect with spiritual matters. I am concerned that these organizations are taking dangerous steps into spiritual warfare. The second last chapter talks about DID and SRA. The author of this chapter seems to be the only one who has received training in DID, but I cannot say I'm on board with the training. The way her sentences were structured gave me the impression that she thought DID and SRA were the same thing. I am sure she does not believe they are the same, but it was hard to read the chapter in a different way. In the About the Author's notes, none of the other authors seem to have training in DID. Some of the authors seem to have no training at all. The book isn't all bad. There are some things that it gets right. The first one being that we need to introduce parts to Jesus. This is important regardless of whether you have DID, OSDD, or the parts that this book brings up. I am not sure I agree with the methods this book suggests. The book is also clear that the fragmented parts are not the enemy. This is absolutely right. The book also brings up the fact that these parts were created to help ease the burden that trauma brings. This is a viewpoint I have had since learning about DID and OSDD. Parts are difficult to live with, but they were created to help. I strongly believe the authors intended good with this book, but I feel that it is misguided and borders on dangerous. I really wanted to put the book down and not finish it, but I had to persist with it so I could write a review based upon the whole book. It got to the point where I was dreading picking it up. I felt attacked, belittled, and dismissed by the authors. Even though the authors said they were going to meet people where they were, it comes across as you have to follow their methods to be actually healed. I felt that this book does not take care of vulnerable people like it is aiming. I am worried about the potential harm that this book can bring. It may be that the authors and I are from different tribes of Christianity, but I am concerned that this goes deeper than different tribes. I will put a huge trigger warning on this book. I was triggered so many times reading it, and the content was not even in line with my trauma. Those who have experienced ritual abuse and religious trauma will absolutely be triggered by this book. I don't believe the few gems in it are worth the triggers and misinformation. If you do decide to read this book, please test everything that it says. Please pray about the things you read and speak to trusted people about what is said in the book. There may be some tips in the books that are useful for you, but I can't guarantee it. I give this book a 2 out of 10. I can't recommend reading this book. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this review. As always, I have placed the details for this book in the description below. If you do decide to read it, remember to read with a grain of salt. Please know you are loved by the incredible God of the universe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!